To everyone attending, however you are attending, welcome to Eastrose Fellowship, Unitarian Universalist on this lovely Sunday. It's trying to snow earlier. Oh, they're gonna. It says it's on. Can you hear me now? Oh, yes. Okay, good morning. Good morning. To everyone attending, however you are attending, welcome to Eastrose Fellowship, Unitarian Universalist on this lovely Sunday. It was actually trying to snow earlier, big, fat, beautiful snowflakes, which fortunately did not stick. So we're safe so far. I am Charlene Woods, your worship leader for today, and our speaker today is friend of Eastrose, Jessica Sand. Jessica attends the Unitarian Universalist Church of Vancouver, where she sings with the choir, volunteers on the Green Team, and is an endowment board trustee. She works in insurance, providing services to her customers in the agricultural industry. She enjoys crafts, gardening, camping, and lives with her wife Tracy and their 5 cats. Today, Jessica will speak about what we can learn from sharing our stories with one another. When we are children, we are captivated by stories. The wonder and adventure of them thrills us. The champion conquering the fearsome beast reassures us. The happy ever after ending is expected. But as adults, we understand that not all stories are thrilling. Some are life-changing. Sometimes the beast conquers the champion and life goes on. Jessica will explore what can we learn from sharing our stories. Share your story and you are not alone. I hear your story. I am not alone. We are so pleased you joined us this morning. I would like to extend a special welcome to those who may be joining us for the first time, either in person or online on our YouTube channel. Welcome, and we hope to see you again soon. For those online, later in today's service, the congregation will share joys and concerns. If you wish to share a joy or concern, you can write that joy or concern in the chat. Your joy or concern will then be shared with the congregation at the appropriate time. For those of us here in the chapel, please silence your cell phones and refrain from texting or surfing the internet as we enter into a time of devotion. Now one of our favorite things, to turn and greet our neighbors, including friends online. Those who could stand, if you would, do so, and look back at the clock where the cameras are. That's our direct conduit to folks joining us online, and welcome them to today's service. Hello, welcome, good morning, buongiorno, buenos dias, konnichiwa, namaste, aloha. And also greet one another in the chapel. Thank you. She's here I invite you to continue those conversations today after service, where we have our potluck and coffee and tea. So we can continue talking there. Oh, and I almost forgot. You know, today is a very special day in that someone's birthday, someone we all know and love, and she's shaking her head. It's not you, Cynthia, it's somebody else. It's Cynthia Hopkins' birthday today, our dear board president.
Is that a joy or a concern?
It depends on the hour. So I thought we could sing happy birthday to Cynthia to get our day started right. So 1, 2, 3, happy birthday.
Oh, no. What is the Mary Little Waltz happy birthday?
Oh, I don't know that one. Go for it, Mary.
You're going to pay for this later.
please.
Happy birthday, Cynthia.
Okay. We wish to acknowledge that for at least 13,000 years, many peoples, tribes, and bands have made their lives here, where our church home and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these peoples, indeed all living beings that have made their homes in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather remembering this is our home, but not just ours. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another.
Come into this house of worship. Come in bringing all of who you are. Rest and quiet your weak, worn spirit, for you are here to touch again the eternal springs of hope and renewal. Calm your hurried pace. For this hour, let the cares, the fretfulness, and worry be set aside. Forgive yourself. You are so very worthy of moving on, of making new efforts, of trying again. Know that you are not alone. There is strength and caring support for you here. You will find comfort if you but ask. Look around. You are part of a potential community. You can make it what you will. Enter into this house of worship. Come, let us worship together.
We begin our worship service with the lighting of the chalice. A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith, a faith built on the foundations of freedom, reason, and welcome. This tiny flame is a symbol of the spark of all this within each of us. As we watch this flame, let us reflect on the words of this unknown author. One tree can start a forest. One bird can herald spring. One smile can begin a friendship. One hand can lift a soul. One star can guide a ship at sea. One word can frame the goal. One vote can change a nation. One sunbeam can light a room. One candle can wipe out darkness. One laugh can conquer gloom. One hope can raise our spirits. One touch can show you care. One voice can wake up everybody. And one life can make the difference. Now, if you would like to stand and join us in our opening hymn, it's in the gray hymnal, number 126, Come, Thou Fount of Every Blessing, and the words will also be on the screen.
See
Thank you, everyone. I always feel like I'm in a privileged spot. I'm up here and you're singing the hymns, and you can feel the waves of music and love sort of float up this way. You guys really sound great, and I just want to thank you for singing together, because it really does make my Sunday. Well, now's the story time, or time for all ages. If we have any little ones visiting today who would like to come closer to hear better, they're welcome to. You can come and just sit right down below us here. Looks like we have a few people this morning. Yay, I love having the little ones for story time. Hello, hello.
Turn around and face us so you can watch us.
Yeah. We're going to tell a story today about Musa and Najib, who are good friends, but they have an argument. Have you ever had an argument with a friend? You have. How did it make you feel? Thumbs down, not so good. Was there anything you could do to get that thumb pointed back up? What was that? Not quite sure, but it worked out in the end. Okay, well, Musa and Najib have a similar problem. They're friends, but they have an argument that threatens their friendship. So let's see what they do. So once two friends named Musa and Najib made a journey through the mountains of Persia on camelback. They came after a time to a place where a stream flowed by a sandy bank and trees gave shade. There they had a discussion, which turned into an argument. Najib grew angry, and for the first time ever, he slapped Musa across the face. Yeah, it's very serious, huh? Musa was stunned. He felt angry. He wanted to slap Najib back, but then he thought,
I cannot be too mad at my friend because I could have done the same thing. We are alike, and I care about him, and I don't want to fight with him anymore.
So he walked over to the trees instead and picked up a stick. And with the stick, he wrote in the sand,
Today, my best friend slapped me.
Then he and his friend stood in silence and watched as the desert wind blew the words in the sand away. By the time the writing had disappeared, Najib had said that he was sorry. The friends got back on their camels and rode to their destination in a distant city. On the trip back through the mountain pass, they stopped again at the same river. But this time, the two friends decided to take a swim. Since their first visit, the rains had made the current stronger and the river much deeper. Musa, the friend who had been slapped, stepped into the water first. Right away, he slipped on a rock, was dragged under by the current, and began to drown. Well, Najib jumped in right away without a second thought and pulled his friend to safety. The two friends again sat in silence for some time, and till Musa had regained his breath. Then he rose and went to his saddlebags. There he found a carving knife. This time he went to a rock near the river. Into the rock he carved these words.
Today, my best friend saved me.
Again, the two friends sat in silence. Finally, Najib spoke. My friend, after I hurt you, you wrote the words in sand. Now, after I saved you, you write the words in stone. Why?
When someone hurts us, we should write it down in sand where the winds of forgiveness can erase it away. This way our hearts are free from bitterness and we can renew our friendships. But when someone does something kind for us, we must engrave it in stone and in our hearts so that we will never forget.
Thank you, my friend. I'm so grateful for our friendship, and I will never want to hurt you again. So they embraced and continued on their journey and didn't argue again.
The end.
So what did you think? Is that similar to what you thumbs up? Good. We got the thumbs up. Thank you. Well, now it's time for the young ones to go to their education classes. So we have a tradition, we send our young people out to their groups with a special blessing by singing "We Hold You in Our Love." So those sitting on the aisle, if you would rise and join hands to form a bridge, we will sing the words that are projected on the screen. You guys have fun in class today, okay? And thank you for listening. You're a very good audience. Thank you.
Take a moment to find a comfortable position and listen to the words of this poem by Samuel A. Trumbore. Then we'll take a moment of silence, beginning and ending with the sound of a chime. Then we'll remain seated for our meditative hymn, number 83, Winds Be Still. Let us turn inward, feel the rhythm of the breath. In and out, in and out. Find the peace of just being with the flow of the breath. Letting go of yesterday and tomorrow. Feel the restorative power of the peace of this moment. A peace large enough to open to the concerns and sorrows that trouble us. A stillness quiet enough to respond to the joys and celebrations that enliven us. There is safety here in the rhythm of the breath. The ebb and flow of life is enacted with each one, taking in oxygen sustenance, letting go of carbon dioxide waste, taking in the fullness of experience, letting go of the residue that wants to cling to us. Cultivate inner peace and inner safety. In this sanctuary, dedicated to cultivating the spirit of life, dedicated to being a beacon of love for all beings.
Taking up an offering is a ritual practice of gratitude. It is recognition of the blessings and abundance of our lives, which then becomes a practice of generosity, offering our resources for the task of building a more compassionate and just world. We now pass the basket to receive your gifts in support of this fellowship and the support of our nonprofit sharing partner this quarter, Snowcap Community Charities. Snowcap helps with food, clothing, and other basic human needs, including providing a community garden for low-income families to raise their own vegetables in raised beds. Snowcap serves people who live east of 82nd Avenue and within Multnomah County. For those participating online, you can find donation options on the screen or through the Eastrose website. First-time visitors, you are our guest. Please let the basket pass. Your presence today is your gift to us.
And thank you for your generosity. This is a reading called Boundaries by Lynn Unger. The universe does not revolve around you. The stars and the planets spinning through the ballroom of space dance with one another, quite outside your small life. You cannot hold gravity or seasons. Even air and water inevitably evade your grasp. Why not, then, let go? You could move through time like a shark through water, neither restless nor ceasing, absorbed in and absorbing. The native element. Why pretend you can do otherwise? The world comes in at every pore, mixes in your blood before breath releases you into the world again. Did you think the fragile boundary of your skin could build a wall? Listen. Every molecule is humming its particular pitch. Of course, you are a symphony. Whose tune do you think the planets are singing as they dance? Stories. What about you? If you have children in your life, you might tell them stories at bedtime or around the campfire. Stories are told in school because it's a great way to learn. Our lives are filled with the telling and listening to stories. Our stories pass down histories and secret recipes, and they make us feel. Have you ever heard a story that made you cry because you felt sorry for someone? Or maybe it brought up your own memory of sorrow. Our stories are what connect us to one another and help us build a beloved community. For centuries, stories have been used to teach the morals of the day, the message or lesson to be learned, told to impart an acceptable code of behavior or illustration of right and wrong. The ancient Greeks began recording the first known parables, and many religious traditions have stories to guide their believers, such as the parables of Jesus Christ in the Christian faith. In our story for all ages, we heard earlier, the two friends learned to let go of their disagreements by recognizing the importance of remembering their kindness to each other. It is a moral tale. Now, there are many types of storytelling. Before the internet, the telephone, and the newspaper, storytelling was the only method people had to learn about what was going on around them. Travelers passing through towns would share stories of what was happening in other places, and musicians would share songs written about great battles and love stories. Stories passed down from parent to child across the generations about the histories of the people. Today, watching movies and television, reading articles and books, listening to the radio, and podcasts on the internet are ways that stories are shared in our lives every day. But I'm more interested in the kind of storytelling that is shared from person to person. Opportunities to share stories are everywhere, whether with our friends and family over dinner, briefly catching up with someone at coffee hour after church, or even waiting in line at the grocery store. When I meet someone new, I want to make a connection. Have you ever felt invisible in a group setting, but once you've shared a story, suddenly you feel seen? Stories don't live in a vacuum, but have at least two active participants, the storyteller and the listener. The act of telling and listening connect us on multiple levels, in our minds and in our hearts. Stories can transport us into another person's world. By reading or listening to stories, we can travel to places we otherwise could never visit, back in time or even in the future. They help us escape our own lives for a time, or they make us aware of current events in our community. They teach us about what it is to be human. But most of all, they connect us to each other. This connection is really interesting to me because as a Unitarian Universalist, I'm always thinking about how to make the world a better place. I've concluded that if more people understood each other better by recognizing the ways that we are alike and honoring the ways that we are different, we could end so much suffering and pain in the world. I want to find ways to move from conflict to communication and connection. And sharing stories is one way that can bring about this much-needed connection. In her book, Transforming Conflict, The Blessings of Congregational Turmoil, Teresa Cooley writes that understanding ourselves is a key component of healthy interactions with others. Without developing this understanding, we can get lost in our own righteousness, our own rightness. And doing so simply ends up creating resistance in others. Understanding ourselves is very hard work to do because it makes our brains work harder than they want to, because it forces us to re-examine the stories that make sense to us, that follow the pattern of our own assumptions. Let me explain Cooley's words in a different way. When we experience interactions with someone we don't know very well, or with someone with whom we may not be in full agreement with, if we can understand our own biases, we can break from that automatic response and unconscious reaction and develop a greater degree of compassion for others. Not everyone will see the world as you do. What can we learn from listening? Perhaps an ability to overcome our preconceived notions. My hope is that after hearing this reflection today, you will be inspired to connect with someone by sharing or listening to a story and the possibility of transforming conflict. Some of you may be thinking, but sharing a personal story is scary. Yes, it can take a little bit of courage to put yourself out there. There's a vulnerability in opening yourself up to others. So first of all, you must consider if you feel safe enough to share. You are trusting that the other person will be willing to listen with compassion and empathy. From my experience, it's best to start with someone you already know and trust. Start small, see how it feels. You might be surprised to find that once you begin, your story just pours out. And remember that when someone else is sharing their story with you, they may be experiencing the same anxiety in their own vulnerability. You may be asking yourself, how can I practice listening with compassion and empathy? The first step is to acknowledge what the person has shared. It's less important to respond or try to offer a solution. Most often, what is needed is simply validation that their story has been heard. Do you know that feeling of relief after sharing a personal story that feels like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders? Well, sharing your story can feel cathartic and even therapeutic. I have felt this way. The most impactful sharing experience I've had was about 6 years ago when I joined a support group after my wife Lindy died by suicide. Because of the trauma I experienced, I felt so many emotions in my grief process. At this support group, for the first time, I shared with strangers the story of what happened. It was hard, and I cried, but the group members listened patiently. Telling my story helped me process what I had experienced. At the next meeting, there were a few different people in attendance, and I shared my story again. And this time, I felt safe enough to reveal a little bit more about how I was feeling. When I heard the others share their stories of grief and loss, I understood that I was not alone in my feelings of confusion and heartbreak. When people who are suffering come together to talk and really listen to one another, it can be a very healing connection. Dr. Annie Brewster, Harvard Medical School professor, founded Health Story Collaborative for that very reason. Her mission is to keep the patient voice alive in healthcare and to harness the healing power of stories. After her own diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, she realized firsthand that the medical system was failing patients. The collaborative works to help individuals tell their stories of illness and healing, embracing storytelling in all its forms, including visual arts, performing arts, and written expression. Connecting storytellers and listeners helps them find healing and purpose in the sharing of their personal narratives. I explored the Health Story Collaborative website and found a library of audio stories, videos, and recorded events by individuals sharing their process of navigating illness. I was inspired by their testimonials about how they and their families had felt less isolated and more empowered facing their health challenges after participating in the program. I'll share a little bit of one story that I discovered by Elizabeth Pugh about her experience having long-haul COVID. She shared about how in the early days of the pandemic, she started experiencing symptoms of heart issues and shortness of breath. She had doubts, but determined to have faith in doctors and hospitals, telling herself, I need care and I'm worthy of care, even though those in her life had told her it was all in her head. She walked to the emergency room and they gave her a test for COVID. They told her it was negative and diagnosed her with a respiratory virus, sent her home. A month later, her symptoms had worsened, and she returned to the ER. She was told she had anxiety and was advised to seek a therapist. She had read that COVID tests had showed a false negative about 30% of the time, but the medical community wasn't listening to her. She found the experience very frustrating, saying, metaphorically, it was like I was losing my voice. I had to scream to be heard. No one was listening to me. Later, she found an online community and read stories from people all around the world who were experiencing the same thing. Here she found people who listened to her. She said, there were times at 3 o'clock in the morning when I could not get my breath, and I had no one to call. Putting my story on the social media and having a girl in Sweden text me that she can't breathe. Someone is on the other end, and we can share our experiences. I went from begging to live to almost wanting to die because it seemed no one cared to help. But after the connection she made with this woman, she told herself, no, you are not alone. You're not alone. It's time to listen and heal. Dr. Annie Brewster's goal in founding the collaborative is to help people like Elizabeth who just need someone to listen, and to honor the arc of each story in its integrity, celebrating the strength and resiliency of each individual. She says, my hope is that these stories will be helpful to both participants and listeners. None of us is immune to illness. Healing narratives are relevant to all of us. These stories transcend illness as a celebration of hope, human resiliency, and dignity. I love the idea that stories can help us transcend illness or other things like fear, loneliness, ignorance, and insecurity, to name a few, because they give us the opportunity to be vulnerable or be open to someone else's vulnerability. When we do this, we realize we are not alone. But what does it mean to be open to someone else's vulnerability? One tool that is helpful to this end is a practice called deep listening. According to the Center for Contemplative Mind in Society, deep listening is a way of hearing in which we are fully present with what is happening in the moment. No trying to control it or judge it. We let go of the inner clamoring and our usual assumptions and listen with respect for precisely what is being said. Recently, my home congregation incorporated the use of this tool in listening circles. These were small groups of church members organized by the ministry team. We met to discuss the new language of the Article 2 Purposes and Covenant of the Unitarian Universalist Association. These will be brought to the General Assembly for a vote this summer. These small group conversations offered the opportunity to learn about the changes, but mostly to listen to each other in the congregation as we shared our thoughts and feelings about the deepest values, held by UUs. This meeting was unlike any other church meeting that I've ever participated in. The facilitator, our ministerial intern, Jennifer Springsteen, had prepared a list of questions and asked us to share our feelings and experiences around the current principles and purposes and on the new language. What made this meeting different from others was there was to be no responding to each other's comments, no agreement, no disagreement, no reflection on each other's stories, only listening with the heart. I found this harder to do than I thought, and I realized this is something I need to practice. Then Jennifer asked us to line up against the wall according to how strongly we felt about the current UU principles. Did they strongly affect our lives? Or maybe they didn't impact us at all? Or were we somewhere in the middle? We each shared our personal stories about why we felt the way we did. As Jennifer explored the topic, the questions changed. We listened, and we moved around in the line, showing our notions about the principles were more flexible than we might have first thought. Thinking about the listening circle later, I realized it was a great experience. I heard some different perspectives and variations on the theme that I may not have heard otherwise. I have a feeling that if I continue to practice deep listening, it could have a positive impact on my other relationships as well. And when it comes to relationships, deep listening can have a big impact, especially when we share our hopes, fears, and aspirations. It can also create change. My brother, David Reed, told me about his work with an organization called Neighbors United. He lives in Nelson, BC, Canada, a small mountain town in the Kootenays, surrounded by other small towns where the main industries in the area are forestry and mining. Neighbors United's mission is to bring neighbors together to defend nature and build sustainable community. Their work focuses on a number of topics, including phasing out fossil fuels, promoting renewable energy, and defending old-growth forests. You might think that these topics would be very difficult to discuss with people who are employed in the industries that are often blamed for climate problems. But they've actually been really successful because they engage in deep canvassing conversations with the public. Deep canvassing is deep listening with a purpose. David and the other Neighbors United volunteers were trained how to talk with strangers in person and over the phone to have personal conversations about climate solutions. They started by asking curious questions, listening, and sharing personal stories to find common ground and shared values. The goal was to overcome the polarization that is often found around big political issues like climate. Like in the experience I had in the listening circle, the canvasser asks the community member to pick a number on the scale to show where they stand on the issue of renewable energy, with 10 being strongly agree and 1 being strongly disagree, and each number in between. Once they've picked their number, the canvasser asks why they would and would not support renewable energy. David said, instead of debating with people about whether climate change is real, we ask people questions like, how has air pollution affected you or someone you know? He would then share his own story of having lung issues after living in Los Angeles while going to college in the 1990s, participating in outdoor sports. Smog had damaged his lungs and had long-term effects on his health. Later, he explains in a TEDx presentation about the experience, saying, sharing a personal story and inviting others to share theirs Thinking about carbon pollution the same way we think about smog has helped people to recognize the need for more and better policies to protect us from air pollution, including carbon. Before the deep canvassing conversation ends, the canvasser asks the community member to revisit the scale of 1 to 10 and identify their level of support. The result is usually an increase in support. While using deep canvassing, Neighbors United has helped more than 1 in 3 rural and small-town people resolve their internal conflict, to shift their beliefs and behaviors in a lasting way, and support more government action on climate and sustainable land use. They connected with them through stories. The examples I've shared today of how storytelling can have a positive impact on people's lives is so different, with so many lessons to learn, from helping people process grief from the loss of a loved one to transcending illness through shared experiences. Learning to listen in the work toward beloved community at church, to social action and the search for shared values to support a climate change policy. Telling stories and listening to them have value on an individual and mutual level, helping us build on our common values and respectfully engaging with one another. It shows us we're all in this together. We are not alone. So now please join me in singing hymn number 128, For All That Is Our Life, and stand if you're able.
As we extinguish the chalice, let us reflect on the power of sharing our stories with one another and on the words of Alex Hayter Winnett, prayer. Let us be open to new and surprising ways the divine moves through our lives. Let us worship in places usual and unusual. Let our bodies move as they may, animated by the loving force that unites all. May we be washed in tears, sweat, and rain, and brought into a new world of freedom. Let the hymns we sing be both ancient and new. And may we find ways to regain our humanity through enjoying life together.
Having let go, set our intentions, named our curiosity, committed our energies, and given ourselves over to the lives of balance, purpose, and meaning, let us begin again in love. Go forth and share your story.
Your music is beautiful. Now for announcement. Volunteers, get ready for helping snowcap this Friday. King Clay will be taking the lead this time. Volunteering will be from 3 to 5 p.m. And again, that's at snowcap. We're still looking to hire childcare staff. Eastrose needs nursery staff to supervise children up to age 4 on Sunday mornings. If you or someone you know loves working with young children, has experience supervising children in group settings, and can pass a background check, please contact Tara at familyministry@eastrose.org for a full job description. There's an upcoming all-ages game night, which should be fun, Saturday, March 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. It's a time to get together for laughter, food, and fellowship, and playing games of all kinds for all ages. If you want more information, Tara's the contact at familyministry@eastrose.org. And this year, General Assembly will be held June 21st through 25th in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. If you're interested in being an Eastrose delegate, either in person or virtually, contact Board President Cynthia Hopkins, who's here today. Raise your hand, Cynthia. Thank you. And we, as you know, in August we'll have a minister. And something to look forward to is prepping for our September homecoming. When asked, our new minister said we will be having a water communion on homecoming on September 10th. So remember to collect water from places ordinary, like your garden hose, or maybe extraordinary, like the Oregon coast, or wherever you happen to be traveling. The idea is to contribute water with personal or spiritual significance, and it's always a great ritual. So again, that's going to be on September 10th, and we'll have our water ritual again. Wanted to let you know that next Sunday, our service will be by Carolyn Kurtz, calling Doing Justice, Loving Mercy, and Walking Humbly. She will be discussing about how all world religions focus on how to live with integrity and in tune with spiritual truths. And the worship leader will be Reverend Sue Matranga Watson. And now there's potluck today. This is the first Sunday of the month. If you forgot or you didn't know it, there's usually enough food to go around, so please stay for potluck and coffee and tea. For folks online, you can visit through Cafe Conversations. The link is in the chat. It's also in the Petals newsletter, or you can go to our webpage under Worship tab and select Attending Sunday Services to join that conversation group. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. God bless.